Syria's response to the threat of foreign military intervention is one of defiance. Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim says the international community needs to find another reason.
We are all hearing the drums of war around us. If they want to launch a war in Syria, I think the pretext of chemical weapon is frail and fragile. It is a false pretext. I totally denied that we used chemical weapons, and those who claim to be in possession of evidence, I challenge them to lay it out before the eyes of the public opinion.
Muallim says intervention will only benefit Al-Qaeda and Israel.
If a military strike is launched, it will be only to serve Israel's interests, and it will no doubt benefit the military operations of Al-Qaeda-affiliated Al-Nusra Front inside Syria. If they think that the military strike being planned for will undermine our military operations in Ghouta, I assure you it will not affect them at all.
The alleged chemical attack last week on Ghouta has shocked the world. Western leaders have accused the Syrian government of using chemical weapons. Now the UK, the US, France and other countries are talking about a military action away from the UN Security Council. But Russia has warned against any military intervention in Syria, saying such step could have catastrophic consequences. President Vladimir Putin has told British Prime Minister over the phone that there is no evidence yet that the Syrian regime used chemical weapons. But now Western countries are closer than ever in getting involved militarily in Syria's 2.5-year-long war. The Syrian government says it has two options, either to surrender or fight to the end. Omar, Al-Saleh, Al Jazeera.
Well, let's now speak to our White House correspondent, Patty Culhane. She's live for us in Washington, D.C. Now, Patty, the Obama administration has very little doubt that the Assad government was responsible for this chemical attack. But are we getting any indication as to when we are going to see this evidence?
It is likely that within the week, according to the Obama administration, they're going to declassify some of the evidence that they say proves that Assad was behind this chemical attack. We are getting kind of an indication as to what exactly they're going to do when they do respond by when they laid out exactly what they hope to accomplish. The Obama administration says it will respond to this, the use of chemical weapons in Syria. But the goal, they insist, is not to get rid of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, but to send him a message.
It is not our policy to respond to this transgression with a regime change.
They say no decision has been made, but it seems likely the response would at most involve cruise missiles attacking military infrastructure, not chemical weapons stockpiles. Experts say a limited strike is unlikely to change the direction or the momentum of the war in Syria.
In terms of shifting momentum on the ground, it's not likely. I think that targeted strikes are really more powerful in terms of the signaling that they achieve, and the sending a very strong message that the use of chemical weapons will not be tolerated.
Many believe the president left himself little choice but to respond. This was 1 year ago.
A red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized.
President Obama has been hesitant to get involved in Syria. The majority of the American people don't want it. And former Ambassador Robert Hunter says the administration is afraid of who could come to power if Assad falls.
Then what happens? Who replaces that? What happens to the Alawites? Is there a bloodbath? Does Al-Qaeda and its affiliates gain the upper hand? I think the idea is to try to calibrate a military action enough to send a message, but not so much as to change momentum on the ground. And if there's somebody who knows how to do that, I've never met that person.
The Obama administration is expected to tell the American people why they believe it's necessary to do something. It will unclassify some of the evidence they say proves Assad's government is responsible for the attack, making the argument the world has no other choice but to get involved, but only to a point.
So, Patty, we're hearing from the Defence Secretary that he has got everything in place to strike Syria at any time. But what sort of timeline do you think Obama's working to? Do you think he's going to try, for instance, to convince Congress that this is the right thing before taking any action?
Well, there is a growing number of Congress members who are saying that the president actually by law has to get some sort of authorization. The White House will only say that they will consult with members. They're not saying that they are going to try and get a vote. They might not be able to get a vote because, as I told you, the polls show the vast majority of Americans don't want to get involved in Syria. I don't think we were talking about weeks. We were probably talking about some response within days. The Obama administration knows that its credibility is on the line. They've come out with very harsh rhetoric, which you don't usually hear. You don't usually see administrations doing this much telegraphing in advance. So any response is likely to come within days.
OK, Patty, thanks very much for the update there from Washington, D.C.